Today, we're going to have another one of Randy's old wild harvesting stories. He's been harvesting commercially since the 80s, and over the years, he's had some crazy moments out in the bush. On our way back from our 2023 morel season, which you can find the playlist on our channel, we drove through an area called Blue River, which is in the northern Cassiar mountain wilderness, just south of the Yukon border along the Cassiar highway. And Randy harvested a fire there 12 years ago, and he wants to tell a story about that year. So this is the Blue River story.
Good day. Well, my name is Randy Marchand. I've been harvesting different wild products most of my life, commercially since the late 80s. I really like being out in the wilderness. It's been a journey.
So when did this fire burn?
The Blue River fire? I think 2010.
And you're hunting morel mushrooms on the wildfires. If you're a returning viewer, you know this very well by now, but if you're new, we hunt morels the year following the forest fires, and we go to these wilderness areas to do that.
We headed for the burn first week of May or something like that. So when we got there was no other pickers, no other people around, and we were the first ones there. We already had a camp set up, a few other buyers showed up, then pickers started showing up. The normal, building camp, scouting the burn. We call it Blue Lakes because the water has this blue-green look to it. It's amazing color. So there's these little picturesque lakes with little ridges running between them, and it's so beautiful. It's too bad it burnt, but the lakes are still there, you know. We knew we wanted to come back because we had stopped there on our way back from the Yukon the previous year and actually camped there before it burnt. And the loons would be singing at night, the ducks quacking, and the beavers slapping their tails at night. You know, and it's these beautiful lakes, right? And it doesn't really get dark yet. There's no real darkness when we're coming home. There's no real darkness because we're so far north. So at that point, we've just gone south of 60. Like we jumped off the 60th parallel, and there was 3 of us that year, which turned into 4 because another fellow come up and joined us. We set up our camp, we built our dryers, we worked on our own structures. We scouted and scouted and scouted, and we had a pretty good lay of the fire. We know from experience that the mushrooms, the morels, will start in the aspen on the south slopes. That's usually where you'll find them first, just about every year. We were walking there, and one day, there's some baby morels, and that was it. Morels! And every day they got bigger and it spread out from there. And so, it was about the end of May before we had our first really good day picking. Struggle now to remember how many we got, but usually in those days, I was pretty fanatical about getting 5 baskets minimal, so probably something like that. At our camp, it was part of the old road, and they made the new road, and so they leave these little sections of paved road, and there was a big drop off, like 200-foot drop off, and it went down, just no trees on it, just went down, boom. And then so I kind of laughed, and we took a screen and we cut a couple poles on the thing there, and we had it propped up on the side of this hill. Hot air rises, so the sun would hit that hill, rise up the hill, and it would make a wind coming up the hill. And we were laughing, this is a great way to dry mushrooms. But it turned out it wasn't so great because the wind would get so strong it would blow the mushrooms right off. We couldn't keep them on the rack. No, they would blow right off the rack. We'd have to use 2 screens on each one as a lid. The picking was picking up, and we had 4 or 5 different patches we were working, maybe a bit more. We were cycling through them. One day we started smelling smoke. We were like, what's going on?
Kind of like me right now.
Yeah, like you right now. You know smoke?
Yeah, smoke, I'm smelling it. There's a fire somewhere nearby.
So it was kind of like that, yeah. And then we realized, it's another fire, or it's reignited. So we drove down the road until we could get a look at the fire. We climbed this hill, we were looking at it, and we're realizing, oh shit, we got to get out of here. That thing is coming really fast, and it's like a fire tornado. It was an actual fire tornado. Forestry came, and we had so much time to evacuate. So we throw all our camping gear in the vehicles, just throw it in. We leave the dryer, all that stuff. Our tents we take, our clothes, all that stuff, personal stuff. We take all of that. We get out of there. We cross back into the Yukon and camped just north of the junction in a big cut block. And that night, it snowed 3 inches. We're kind of thinking, well, this fire's gonna be out. It snowed 3 inches. So we go, well, I guess if we're gonna be stuck, let's go to Liard. So back to Liard Hot Springs we went and did the whole hot spring thing. And then after Liard, we come back to Watson and got a nice campsite there, really cheap, and it had showers, and there was a lot of politics. They let the mushroom pickers back in. Let's just say thank them for letting us in. And that was the right thing to do, because they knew and we know it doesn't reburn a year after it's burnt once. You don't have the ground debris, and it depends on the burn, of course. Yeah, we had one helicopter pilot that just comes down, lands right beside our dryer, the plastic's flapping him from his prop wash. Our stuff's flying all over, and he's screaming at us that we got to get out of there and we're not supposed to be there. And we said, no, they've let us back in. He didn't have the memo. And after a few words, he went on his merry way. So then we got back picking, and things got, summer comes in a hurry. One day you're close to your fire. The next day you're like, oh, it's so hot, can't stand it. So many mosquitoes, tons of mosquitoes there. Usually when we're getting good mushrooms, there's always good mosquitoes.
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
Oh, it's like I've said sometimes the worse the mosquitoes are, the more mosquitoes, the better the morels.
So then my picking partner, Michael, got turned around one afternoon, and maybe he didn't drink enough water and was a little dehydrated or something, but he went exactly the wrong way and went down into these big lowlands when we never crossed any lowlands to go in there. There's no road there is no road until you hit the ocean. You'll hit Alaska. So Michael's lost. He spent the night, and we go, okay. One of us went out and started a fire where we were picking last. He didn't show up, so then at night we extinguished the fire and come back to camp. We said, okay, first thing in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock, we'll go look for him again. So I went back, found his footprints, and I'd follow his footprints. I was tracking him. What I would do when I lost his prints, where I last seen his prints, I would stand there and I go, if I was walking through here, where would I walk? Through here. And then you kind of figuring out how he works, because you're following him for a while, right? So then, okay, there'd be his footprints, follow it, kept doing that over and over, and finally come to this big ridge, and you look down over this big lowland, like you can see for 20 miles, but it drops down big. His tracks go down it. And I'm like, I'm not going down there, so I'm like, Michael, you dumbass, where are you? Michael! And then you hear way off, hey, hey. And he's like way southwest. And there's a big swamp between him and the highway. He ain't going through that swamp. Muskeg swamp, like bad one. He does that 3 or 4 kilometers in no time. And he's got no mushrooms left, empty bucket.
Yeah. Mushrooms, yeah.
So anyways, we brought him back, fed him, and I stress enough to look at a map, have an exit plan when you go into the bush, no matter what you're doing. If you're going off the road, you need to know how you're getting back to the road. So the best way is to look at a map and you say, okay, if I get messed up, I got to come back east. If you're playing on the west side of the road, you know you got to come east back. So have an idea of a map, a visual map in your head. That's number one. And have the safety gear with you, right? Like we've had a thunderstorm come through that has hail. And it'll go from 30 degrees now, and it's like you're frozen. You're soaking wet, and you're frozen, and you're just like, because you don't have any other clothes with you. It's, you know, so you got to have that stuff.
On the channel before, I've tried to stress the point of you should really go into the bush safely, because it's one thing when you're hiking a known trail. When you're hiking into the unknown on a burn, you don't know where you're going to end up. You have to take that seriously, and it's not just about yourself and your own safety. Of course, that's important, but it's also about everybody else, because what can happen is two things. One, all your picking crew might have to stop picking and lose income for a whole day to try to find you. So it's partially out of respect for everybody else you're working with. But in a more serious case, what can happen is the search and rescue can shut down the picking so that they don't lose the tracks to go and find somebody who's seriously lost. And that can affect dozens, if not up to 100 or so people in some cases. It's not very common, but it can happen. And it's happened, yeah. So it's not just about you. You have to be considering others as well when you go in the bush, especially when you're working in a burn in an industry where people rely on that income.
We had a couple really good patches, and one day I decided I was going to work around the lakes. So I go picking around the lake, and I've got like 4.5 baskets, and I start on the lake that we camp on. I'm back to that lake because behind it there's 2 or 3 other lakes. So I went around them all back, did all the shores, and it was really good picking. I get back on the lake that we camped on by the highway, and that final shoreline, it's loaded, and it's like I got my bucket's over full, I got the extender full, I got the backpacks full, and there's mushrooms, and I'm like, do I put another basket, fill another basket, just get out of here? And there's like so many mosquitoes. All the mosquitoes in the whole Yukon and northern BC all got blown to that side of the lake, and it was like every breath you could suck in 20 mosquitoes in one breath if you opened your mouth and breathed. So it was terrible. So finally I did, no, that's it, I'm out of here, go back. One day we had found a road, and it just went into this big, like, clear-cut area. I don't know what they did there, but the whole ground was like just scraped clean, like they were gonna farm. There was no stumps, no anything. There was freaking morels out there, little morels, like, and there's like, oh, okay. So we're watching those, and we drive to the end, we go for a hike, and then we started finding them. And that's when we worked there for a week and a half at least, and everybody was getting 5, 6, 7 baskets.
Wow, nice. It's a good patch.
Yeah, and it was just loaded, and they just kept pumping out of it. So anyways, I go across the road, and there's, part burned areas, and it had freaking exploded in there. And I picked I think it was 5 or 6 baskets I came home with, and I picked them all like in an hour and a half. No, it was insane. It was just like, they were all big, and there was like so many of them, and you hardly had to move, and you'd have like 3/4 of a basket already, and it would be like, holy shit. So anyways, yeah, I came home, and so it was, that was a half season that year for me.
Because you had a prior obligation.
Yeah, I had somewhere I needed to be and wanted to be.
So I remember Randy returning back to where I live at the time, and coming back with a massive bag full of dried morels, and he walks in with this big bag over his shoulder with dried mushrooms, which was a common occurrence. This happened every year, basically. But it's always funny when you look out the window and, oh, here's Randy visiting, and he walks out with a huge bag of dried morels over his shoulder.
I had to walk away from an amazing last couple hour pick, but that's how it goes, and that was the time I had given myself, and that's what, luckily, we got to do that. Yeah. Otherwise not go that year. Canada, eh?
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed Randy's story. He's got lots more. If you want to hear more of them, let us know. And this video should be coming out the following us driving through this location. In the drone shots, you can see all the regrowth, and it's just a beautiful piece of wilderness. The first time I went through there, I was really in awe. One thing Randy didn't mention is that this region of the Cassiar Highway is one of the most active bear populations on the planet. And the first time I drove up that road, within just that stretch of road, there was around 37 black bears and grizzly bears. So here he is in this wilderness area. He's got helicopters landing in his camp. He's got forest fire tornadoes coming at him. People are getting lost, and there's always the threat of bears. But none of them are as bad as the mosquitoes.
So one thing I would like to say, if you guys like the content that Phil works so hard to produce and what we work to create, if you want to help support us, we don't do Patreon, and we decided not to do that, but if you would like to help support us, then please see our Shopify site and you know, make a small purchase, and that goes a long way into helping us do what we do.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
Canada.